What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is Rhett and Evan from the Cannon Fire Podcast, back at you today with another video regarding the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the 2022 slate of opponents has been released, and there are quite a few contenders on this list. We're going to break down all the opponents for the Buccaneers next season. Let's go ahead and start with who they're going to be playing at home. So you do have the regular division matchups, the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers, all of those guys going to be coming to town. But aside from that, the Bucs are going to be playing opponents from the NFC West and the AFC North division. So the LA Rams will come back to town, and this is something we'll get for the third year in a row. Well, fourth year in a row in 2022. We know this is a tough matchup. I mean, nothing else needs to be said. It's the first of many tough matchups for the Bucs next year.
Yeah, it is. It is a very tough matchup. And before we get really into this is not a schedule, right? We are not saying these are just the opponents. The schedule will be released in April or whatever. So this is just the opponents. But yeah, the Rams are always a tough matchup for the Bucs. Sean McVay seems to have the Bucs number, and maybe next year will be different.
Staying with their home opponents, the Seattle Seahawks, the next team on the list. And it's pretty interesting here because it begs the question, are they going to be playing without Russell Wilson? Is this going to be Pete Carroll operating with an all-new quarterback and maybe a new offense, or, trying to make some things happen? Like, what kind of Seattle team are we going to see here? Because they didn't play well this year.
Yeah, I really have no clue. And that's why a lot of these opponents, right, you look at the surface, but there's an entire offseason. So will Russell Wilson be there? Will Pete Carroll be there? I still think there's some doubts of whether Pete Carroll will even be the head coach. I think maybe he will, resign maybe. So, yeah, there could be a lot of uncertainty in Seattle. So we're not 100% sure of what Seattle team will be showing up in Tampa.
The Baltimore Ravens, representing the AFC North, will come to town. Lamar Jackson, a former MVP, one of those speedy quarterbacks that we know can give the Bucs problem. Again, another primetime worthy matchup that's going to be on the Bucs schedule next year, because I know they're only limited to 5, but there's probably 8 or 9 games that they're going to play next season that really could be a primetime matchup. This is definitely one of those.
This is going to be an interesting one, yeah, because the last time the Bucs played the Ravens was 2018. So Todd Bowles' defense has not gone up against a guy like Lamar Jackson recently. So it'll be very interesting to see how they defend him. And yeah, that should be, if it's not a primetime game like at night, it'll definitely be a game I think the national audience will be able to view.
Cincinnati Bengals are the next team on the list. And this one's pretty interesting too, because when you look at the schedule as a whole, the Bengals aren't a team that's going to jump out at you. But when you also factor in how Joe Burrow has just seemingly been getting better and better week after week, I think this is one of those matchups that we could look at a year from now and say, yeah, that was a pretty tough game for Tampa Bay. Just another tough opponent.
Yeah, to me, it will determine, are the Bengals a 1-year wonder or are they for real? We don't know that right now. And like I said, there's an entire offseason to go. So, yeah, that happens sometimes. Teams come out of nowhere and then the next year they just drop off. Look at the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2017. It happens. So we'll be able to see. And I mean, I do like Joe Burrow. We're just, I'm not 100% sure if this is the Bengals team you're going to see, but it definitely could be.
Next up on the list, a team that the Bucs played in the regular season in 2020 did not get scheduled to play in 2021 and could potentially play them again here in the playoffs over the next month or two. That is Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, who will invade Raymond James Stadium next year. Again, I mean, I'm going to say the same thing about a lot of these matchups. Just another tough game where the Bucs are going to be having to play their best football.
Are we sure this is Aaron Rodgers?
That's also
yeah,
true.
That's the big thing. I personally do not believe Aaron Rodgers will be on the Packers next year. So I do believe it'll be Jordan Love. The schedule looks difficult until you realize that Seattle might not have Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers might not be with Green Bay. So, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot, just like with Seattle, there's a lot of uncertainty with Green Bay in the offseason. And if Rodgers is not there, is Devontae Adams there? It really makes a difference. So we'll have to wait and see.
And obviously, we're not, predicting these games. It's far too early to do something like that. But we are also talking under the mindset, we're assuming that Tom Brady and most of this coaching staff is going to return to Tampa Bay next season as well. So, we might mention Todd Bowles, we might mention Byron Leftwich and their offense and defensive game plans for that week, but that's assuming they're going to be back. Let's get back to the slate of opponents for Tampa Bay, the final home game for the Bucs, and basically the 17th game on the season. With everybody clinching a playoff spot yesterday, this one was made official. The Buccaneers will compete in a Super Bowl 55 rematch with Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is going to be a good one.
This is a long-awaited one, right? And the Chiefs will be plenty motivated. And I'm sure the Bucs will be plenty motivated as well. These are two teams that could potentially meet again in the Super Bowl this year. So who knows? So yeah, this is definitely, I think, going to be. I was surprised the NFL didn't make this a night game when they played. These two teams played in 2020 in the regular season. I think you can almost guarantee that this will be a night game.
So let's go ahead and look at the list of opponents on the road for Tampa Bay. Again, this is going to include teams from the NFC West and the AFC North, so there could be some pretty brutal road trips next year. We'll just have to wait and see what the schedule makers decide. But first up on the list, the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, they're rolling over there, right? This is another one of those teams where, like the Bengals, they're going to have an opportunity to prove by, this time in the season next year, whether they were a one-year wonder or not. We know Arizona held the 1 seed longer than anybody else so far this season. And, they get a chance to do it again next year with some quality opponents, including Tampa Bay.
Well, the Cardinals now, I think, have to prove whether they were a first half wonder or not. They are struggling now during this current season, so we don't even know what type of team they're going to be next year. Yeah, like the Bengals, just like you mentioned, are the Cardinals actually very good, or did they just have a hot start? It'll be very exciting to see. And you bring up a good point with it being the West, traveling from Florida all the way over to the West Coast and also the North, which could lead to some not so great weather games.
Speaking of opponents over there on the West Coast, this one stays in the same division, just up north a little bit. But right there on the coast in San Francisco, the Bucs will play the 49ers next season on the road. 49ers are an interesting team. I feel like maybe the time has come for Jimmy G, because I think if they keep him, they can expect more of the same next year. But I'm also very curious to see what becomes of their team, because it seems like for the past couple of seasons, they have been this close to being contenders. There usually is a lot of hype about these guys at the end of every offseason. Sometimes injuries happen. Sometimes you get crappy quarterback play. I don't know what it'll be, but I'm curious what kind of 49ers team we'll see next year.
Yeah, I think the Bucs will probably see Trey Lance next year instead of Jimmy Garoppolo, and this could be, and most likely will be, the final time that Tom Brady gets to play his hometown team, his childhood favorite team, the 49ers, the team that passed him up in the draft, and the team that also passed him up in free agency. So this will likely be the final time he'll be able to play the 49ers, especially in San Francisco. So it'll be a fun matchup.
Next up on the list is a game that I can 110% tell you that I will be in attendance for. I will make my way up to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to watch the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this is also another interesting matchup because when you look at the Steelers, they're already, they've got a good defense, one of the better defenses in the league, and I think that's going to hold true again next season. But they're likely going to be without Big Ben Roethlisberger next season. So if they're operating with a rookie quarterback or just another guy on the depth chart they think can get the job done, it'll be an interesting matchup between them and the Bucs.
Yeah, I mean their offensive line is bad. They have quarterback issues. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what type of Steelers team. This could be a tough road game for the Bucs because of that Steelers defense. You kind of hope this game is in within the first 8 weeks or so of the season, just to avoid some of that bad weather that Pittsburgh can bring sometimes. But yeah, this will be definitely an interesting matchup, and a lot of Steelers fans still hate Tom Brady, so it'll be fun to he's able to square off against them one more time.
Another AFC North opponent, the Cleveland Browns. And again, just like a lot of the teams in the AFC North this time of year when the discussion becomes, it's pretty interesting to see where this team could be next season. I don't think they'll entirely move on from Baker Mayfield, but the guy is also, not in the most favorable position right now. He kind of sucked on primetime the other night, and somehow they still almost beat the Packers. Like that's the crazy part. So I'm not sure what this Cleveland team will bring, but I can tell you it's probably going to be a tough game because they seem like a team that always plays people tough. I mean, that 2019 game between the Bucs and Cleveland, rookie Baker Mayfield went into overtime, had to win it with the field goal. That game took years off my life. So hopefully if the Bucs can play good football, they can avoid something like this next season.
And it's a much different Cleveland team than they faced. It's a much different Bucs team, but it's a much different Cleveland team than they faced in 2018. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Like you said, there's uncertainty around Baker Mayfield, and you really didn't expect there to be any QB uncertainty in Cleveland right now. But I'm not sold he's going to be there next year. I'm not 100% sold. Will he most likely be? Sure. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I believe Baker Mayfield will be the starter. I really don't. So that's another game you'd like to get out of the way earlier in the year to avoid some weather. And I mean, that tough defense with Myles Garrett, and they got a lot of other playmakers. So it could be a tough game, but like I said, a lot of uncertainty with the Bucs opponents at the quarterback position.
The last away opponent for the Buccaneers in 2022 is a Week 1 matchup from the 2021 season. They'll be going to Dallas to play the Cowboys. They'll take a trip to that fancy stadium. They call it Jerryland over there, right? This is another game that it was primetime Week 1. I think this is almost a shoo-in to be primetime. The Cowboys always get a bunch of primetime games, and when you're playing a team that still has Tom Brady potentially, you're gonna end up on national TV, and I think this one is going to be primetime for sure. But yeah, Bucs and Cowboys should be a good one, man. Cowboys have really proven to be a contender this year.
Cowboys is also proven to be very inconsistent, though. There hasn't been a team, I believe the last 14 seasons, a different team has won the NFC East title. There has not been a single team that's won it back-to-back years. So that just proves that the Cowboys have been inconsistent. Will that defense be able to stay the same? Will the offense, they might lose a few guys on offense. Will that stay the same? Who knows? The weather obviously won't be a factor. Dallas plays in that dome. But yeah, that should be a fun game. I think it will be a primetime game. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that should be a fun game, just like the Week 1 was last for 2021. And then obviously the Bucs play the Saints, Falcons, Panthers. Real quick, Falcons and Panthers seem to be going through rebuilds. They seem to not be able to take that next step next year. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to. So those could be some favorable matchups. And then the Saints, with the Bucs struggles against the Saints have a lot of quarterback uncertainty as well, because is it going to be Jameis Winston? Is it going to be Taysom Hill? Are they going to bring in a brand new quarterback? So there's a lot of opponents here that the Bucs, when you look at it, you say, oh, that might be a tough game. But if this happens and this happens, then that won't be as tough. So, it's an entire offseason. I guarantee you that when they play some of these teams, the Bucs themselves and these teams will not be at 100% health, because that never happens. And, we'll have to wait and see. But, yeah, it's definitely on the surface, it's a tough slate of opponents.
Well, there it is, folks. The entire slate of opponents for the Buccaneers 2022 season. Thank you guys so much for checking out today's video. We do appreciate you checking out the channel. Subscribe if you have not already for more great Buccaneers content. And follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show and, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. We'll talk to you guys in the next one. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers from the 48-yard line. Second down, 13. Brady lobs one downfield. Caught ball by Gronkowski.